This is one of many training videos we're releasing explaining the packages which are available as part of the Countrywide legacy software which is being developed by Countrywide Tax and Trust Corporation Limited. This video will discuss the nomination form which is now live in the new software and has been developed to take into account the new Flexi Access pension scheme. First things first, there does not need to be a trust in place to use this nomination. The client may nominate to individuals without the existence of a trust, although we would always recommend that the trust option be considered to keep assets outside of the beneficiary's estate. The nomination page only requires basic information, but it is worth noting the question as to whether any pensions have been transferred into the existing policy. If the policy is a reasonably large sized one, which is close to or exceeding the nil rate band, then you should contact a local pension advisor or Countrywide with regards to what options you have, as there may be a more tax efficient route. So next we'll talk about the beneficiaries page. The beneficiaries page is relatively straightforward, but there are a few things to note. Firstly, any named children you have entered into the family section on the top left hand side will be added into the beneficiaries page by default. So as you can see here, the beneficiaries have been automatically added below. Now we would always recommend that you include these by default due to the new Flexi Access legislation, but there is naturally an override, so if you click the button here and then untick the beneficiary, this will remove them as a beneficiary, but we would always recommend you include them, so for this example we'll be including them as well. For each share within the beneficiaries, you can dictate where that beneficiary's share should go in the event of them predeceasing the settlor. The options are as follows: surviving beneficiaries, their issue, and other name reserves. Now the impact of surviving beneficiaries effectively means that their share will be distributed to everybody else listed on this page in proportion to their share. So for instance, if you've selected that it's going to be equally, then it'll be equal, but it might be a case that you don't have equal shares, in which case they'll only receive a proportion which is reflective of the amount you decided that they would have. Now their issue brings up this page on the left hand side called Descendants of those named in Schedule 1. Now the impact of this is you have to list all the grandchildren in this example, but might not necessarily be the client's grandchildren, as it could be the daughters or the children of their sister or another relationship, which means it could actually be the nieces and nephews, for instance. And then the next one is other name reserves. This is a list of anybody that you want to receive anything in reserve. Now what you should note about this page is that these people will all receive an equal share of the beneficiary's share, so there's no sort of separation as to whose share goes to where. It's just a list of reserved people and they all receive an equal amount. Okay, so moving on to trustees. Now this is only applicable if we are nominating the policy to trust, and if you've already entered some trust details into the software before, you'll see this question here, and so if you answer it yes, we basically added these as trustees before in the software, so it's brought them up. But for this example we'll click no, and then you'll just manually type or select who the trustees are, and these are the ones that we'll use for our nomination. So now we'll move on to the final document. As you can see, the document pulls all the information from the software, including the trustees. As the nominations to a trust, this is also listed. But then the clause below acts to direct the assets in the event of the nomination to the trust not being possible. So now we'll move on to the final part of the document. The first thing you'll notice is that some beneficiaries have 0% next to their names. Now the reason for this is that each beneficiary at least has to have a percentage, albeit as 0%. The fact that they're listed and with a percentage means that they can qualify under the Flexi Access scheme. You'll note that 100% is to the spouse. Now we haven't really given much mention to the spouse, but in the software we actually chose for her to be the first priority. Then you'll also see the Schedule 2 beneficiaries. Now these were the children of John as directed into the software, and moving down to Schedule 3, this was the other name reserve that we selected, having chosen other name reserves when we were dictating where Terry's share would to go. Okay, so we've got our schedules. The last thing to do is to direct how the assets are going to come down the schedules. So as you can see here, we've got the spouse, and her share is going to go to John and Terry equally, as they're the surviving beneficiaries in Schedule 1. Following on from this, we've got John's share, and that's going to go to the children of his, named in Schedule 2. and then finally Terry's share, which is the other name reserve, which is James Smith. Okay, thanks for listening. For further information or to purchase the package, please contact us on the details on the screen.